When I started to write my latest book, Shy Boys, I thought I was writing a personal memoir about 10 years of my life working with giants of my profession and software engineering professionals around the world. I was thinking that anyone, not just IT professionals, might be interested in reading about my CMAT adventures working with people around the world and traveling to countries I had never before visited and learning about people who thought and acted differently from the way I was brought up. If you're not familiar with CMAT, CMAT stands for Software Engineering Method and Theory, and it refers to a group of volunteers who got together because they believed it was time to change the world of software engineering. It was not my intention in this book to include technical information because we talk about that in other books. And what I was trying to do in this book is to share broader lessons that I thought anyone could appreciate. So with that in mind, I sent the initial draft of the book to just 3 reviewers, 3 of the giants I talk about in the book. And after they got back to me with a few comments, which were for the most part minor, and I fixed those, I was feeling pretty good about this book. But I decided to send it to 19 more IT professionals, thinking this would be a good way to create some pre-release buzz for the book. One got back to me fairly quickly, telling me he thought it might be the best book I had ever written. And then another one got back and said once he started, he couldn't put it down. So now I was feeling really confident about this book. But then I started to receive a few other comments. I mentioned that I sent the book to 19 IT professionals. Those reviewers included software developers, managers, a couple of CEOs of high-tech organizations, and a few university professors who had gone back to teach in the university after a career in industry. One of those reviewers commented to me saying that the book didn't sound like a memoir. He said memoirs typically go deeper into personal thoughts and feelings, and this book read more like notes and observations. After I thought about it, I agreed with him, and this was pretty easy to fix. I just needed to change the subtitle from a memoir of 10 years of working with software engineering giants to notes from 10 years of working with software engineering giants. So at this point, I'm still feeling pretty good about the book. But then I got a couple of more comments from a chapter that I felt was the most interesting and maybe the most important chapter in the book. This was a chapter that was titled, "The Value of Working with People Around the World." This is where I shared my adventure of going to 8 countries and meeting people who thought and acted differently from the way that I was brought up. But now I was hearing from these reviewers that they felt this chapter was distracting. Distracting? Distracting from what? I thought to myself. What do they think this book is about? Maybe I need to rethink what I think this book is about. Now remember, I had been thinking anyone might be interested in reading this book because I had kept the technical information out. Or did I? What I realized once I thought about it was these reviewers found this chapter distracting because they had become engaged in a secondary storyline I was telling, but I wasn't thinking about that. And that was the story of the motivation and the challenges and the thinking behind the Essence framework, which is what the volunteers had been working on, that eventually led to what is known as the Essence standard that became a software engineering standard in 2014. Now, this revelation led me to step back and think about the purpose of this book and who would really be interested in reading it. And what I realized, what struck me at this point, was that anyone can visit different countries and meet interesting people and learn about how they think differently and act differently. And this can lead to interesting dinner time conversations, but in itself, it isn't enough of a reason to write a book. So this caused me to have to deal with a problem, make another decision about, do I delete this chapter entirely? Or might there be a better way to solve this problem? After thinking about it, I realized that deleting the chapter wasn't the answer, because there was another reason I was telling these stories, and it tied to how, despite our differences, by listening to each other's stories, by taking the time to understand our differences first, we were able to come together and agree on a small kernel of truths that held for all successful software engineering endeavors, regardless of size, domain, or environment. So rather than delete the chapter, all I had to do was go back and connect a few dots, showing how decisions were being made within the Essence framework based on certain situations we had all agreed on. Simple example relates to how we chose certain words. An example of this are the words privacy and security, which you won't find in Essence, but you will find the words principles and constraints, which are there to remind teams that they need to agree on and communicate key principles and constraints related to critical endeavor attributes such as security and privacy. So with this, I'm now thinking, after I make these changes to the chapter, I'm feeling good once again about the chapter when I get yet another surprising comment from a reviewer. This reviewer had read the original draft of the book when I was still thinking of it as a memoir, and he liked it. And he was now reviewing the latest version, where I was moving away from my own personal perspective and just telling the story as an outside observer. His comment was, "Paul, don't take yourself out of the book. The book is about you. It's about how your thinking evolved through your CMAT experience." After thinking about it, I realized I could do both. I can tell the story of the thinking behind Essence, the motivation from both the perspective of the giants and the volunteers and the challenges. And I could share the story of how my personal thinking evolved based on what I was learning through my own CMAT adventure. So now, with these changes, I'm feeling pretty good about the book once again, when I get another surprising comment from yet another reviewer. This reviewer had extensive software management industry experience and had gone back to the university to teach. His comment had to do with a disagreement with respect to teaching software management to computer science students in the university. Specifically, he said, "Today, we hire for development skills, and we train or coach how to manage or be managed as part of the job. It isn't something we expect a new graduate to have. Now, I understood his point, and it caused me to go back and clarify a key point about Essence in the book. It is not our intention with Essence to teach management or even programming specifics. Rather, it is our intent, and what I mean by that is it is not our intention to teach specific roles or responsibilities with regard to management or programming, because those can vary from organization to organization. It is our intent with Essence to teach the essentials for all successful software endeavors that don't vary across organizations, and those essentials do exist. And there are essentials of software management that don't vary across organizations, and those essentials are part of Essence, and those are what we want to teach all computer science graduates. Now, in the book, I also explain where in the Essence model those essentials can be found. What we are doing with Essence is sharing with humans what other humans have found to be essential for software endeavor success. I want to end this video blog by thanking all 22 of my Shy Boys book reviewers, as well as all the CMAT volunteers, for sharing their stories and their thinking, which can help us all continue to learn and grow. Thank you.